My hat! This has been somewhat straightforward, I would say. So we're going to continue with the front end disassembly. And in the previous video, you saw me remove the arms. Here we go, the shafts. So again, the only thing I did is I removed these with the 6mm and then 3mm for the ball stud. Removed the screws that go in here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the center one, 5. And that allowed me to then just remove the pins, remove this. But you have to remove the bumper. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and remove this plate, but I'm going to go ahead and just remove these pins as well. It's, although, no, never mind. I'm not going to. All right, so here's the plate. That's the plate there. I am going to leave the dirt there just to guide me, although I don't think it matters what side it goes into. Well, it's actually very easy. So this is the rounded edge, that's the front, and then the sharp edges, those go toward the rear. So if you wipe it off clean, if you just see the way this was punched out, there's going to be a sharper edge that's going to go against the face of this. That is it. So we have this here, and at this point I'm going to go ahead and remove these pins, and I'm going to use my pliers just to help me grip them and pull them out. Now, as I grip them and pull them out, just give them a slight little twist. Remember, the short one is the top one. The long one is the bottom one. The bottom one came out pretty easy, actually. They don't feel bad. They feel good. I'm just checking for scratches and imperfections as I'm running my fingers through it. So that is it. So now, one of the things on the top arm, don't forget there's those 3 spacers there. So when you pull that top arm out, just make sure you mind those spacers. So you have these 3 small little spacers. All right. And at this point you have 2 options. You can either just remove the shaft there, you can remove the shaft there, or you could separate the 2 parts of the shaft. It really is up to you. But I'm going to go ahead and show you how to remove the shaft. So in here, you will be using, it's a 2mm. Everything here is much larger, which is a good thing. Let's see, there is a little bit of play, but I think that's normal. So you have a little screw pin in here. So the head looks just like an oppressor head, right? A set screw, grub screw. And I'm going to set this off to the side. And once you remove that, this will just slide out. Now, as you remove this, just be careful if there's a lot of dirt. Try not to get it inside. And there it is. So I will not be disassembling this since I already did that on the other side. Once you do one side, you've done the other. But I will be removing the shaft on this other side. I grabbed the 1.5 because I'm used to 10 scale. But here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this. And left and right, these are the same size, so it doesn't matter. Go ahead and grab this. So my goal is to get inside of the differential. That is my goal. Now, once you're at this position, if you have an air compressor, I would say go grab an air compressor. It's just too loud for me to do here on the camera, and I'm going to continue on here, but you know, this is fine as long as no dirt gets inside. Now, you could remove this if you wanted to, and this comes all the way down to here. So it just flips off, and this will come off. That is it. Now, the cams, if I don't have to remove them, I'm not going to remove them. But you would just take your driver, 2.5, and remove these screws here. And then the cams would come out. So, like I said, I'm going to leave them there for now. hoping I don't need to remove them. And once everything's removed, you're just going to, see, this should be just a front plate. And that's it. Wow, this is massive. So I do like the honeycomb structure, so that honeycomb, so see that hexagonal structure. The beautiful thing about that structure in general, not because this has it, is it's a very strong structure. It's probably one of the strongest structures when handling parallel forces, but when you're handling perpendicular, it's flexible. So that's the reason why. Alright, so this should slide out. One thing to note is, so I was pushing on the shaft here just to move this out. The wire, so make sure you don't tear this off as you're removing the wire. And I was pushing on this, but also the orientation. So that side is going to go on the right-hand side. In the camera it appears as the left, but remember this is the front. So if you face it away from you, that would be the front. It's on your right-hand side. And here we go. So here is the differential, and the case inside is clean, but to be honest, if you get a little bit of dirt in there, it's not going to matter much because everything moves inside of this case. But this is your differential. And we're going to go ahead and open up the differential just to make sure it is clean. Unlike my mat and everything else, let's go ahead and place that there. Should get my, just a little Makita vacuum that I can operate here, although that would be too loud as well. For the purpose of this, so I'm just going to wipe this. All right, and just place this here. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and grab my 2.5 millimeter. So 2.5 millimeter will open up the case, and there are 3 screws on this side. Something else that can help if you need to orient this, if you look at that little piece here, the red, just remember red goes up. So when you install it, just install that red plastic facing upwards. Now, I'm setting the screws in a way where I can remember, but one thing I am going to recommend is that you label everything. Consider putting it in baggies. Something that works as well is grab cardboard, draw a picture, just a little diagram, and then stick the screws in the cardboard. That would be a recommendation. I'm not worried about forgetting where these parts go, but it works. Once in a while, what may happen is that you will reassemble something, maybe forget a screw that went in a particular area, assemble everything, next thing you know, you have a screw left over. I mean, it could. I'm not saying it will. All right, now there are no other screws that I can see, except for this. I'm not sure if that's part of the design or a plug, but 1, 2, 3, and this should open up. Let's see if I can crack the case open. Is this a collar? No, there's a line there, so that's not a collar. Just checking everything before I try to pry this open. There we go. So, as you're opening and cracking this open, just wiggle it left and right, and this will come out. Now, be careful again with this connection here as you're opening this up. So if you open it, you will see how it's attached. So you'll see the ribbon in there. This is just a piece of rubber and the wire is just going through there. So if you just pull slowly, it'll give you some more slack. But this is it, and I don't think I need to service this. The grease looks fine. Everything's lubricated there. That's probably just the front bearing. But the braces look good. The teeth look good. So I'm not going to worry about it. But here, if you were to remove this, I'm still going to pull everything out. We'll take the pinion, so you just lift up, and you can just check the bearings, go through them. And you can just lift carefully. So lift this little servo here. And this is where you have to be careful. You don't want to break anything. But you have your shifting fork here. You have the little servo. That's the bottom part of the case. And we have our differential right here. Now, these do not appear to be rubber sealed. They are not, but that's fine. They're inside, so that's probably why. But this is the shifting mechanism. So, well, not shifting. This is your locker. This is what locks your differential. So these pins will just go in here, and they will lock everything up. And then if this is out, I'm going to remove it completely. This can now spin in opposite directions. So if your differential is not locking for some reason, you will have to come in here, check the servo, make sure it's working, check your fork, shifting fork, make sure that's working, check these pins, make sure those are working, or this is just black grease. That black grease was fine. Check the black grease. Sometimes it does go. If black grease is old, it breaks down and then it gunks up. So that was fine. I mean, black grease was fine. But I want to go ahead and reapply some new black grease. And usually that's what happens. So for example, T-Max, a lot of people complain about the reverse not working. And then they remove reverse. It's not that it's not working, it's just the transmission, the grease inside of it breaks down and then everything gunks up. That's the issue. So if you just keep this clean, everything should be shifting. Now I'm using black grease. You could use differential grease. Differential grease I find to be very good for these things. So it's usually just maintenance. That's the problem. And again, it's not that I want to defend the T-Max. I mean, everybody has an opinion. But for me, most people that complain that transmission's not good, I say it's a very good transmission. You just need to maintain it, just like the Nero, this Nero. The shifting mechanism is a very good one. You just have to maintain it. Some people will complain that this will stick or it won't lock and open the diff. Now, I'm going to go ahead and open this. I should grease this later, but you just have these 4 screws here. And this is one of the places where you need to be careful. If you want to change the differential fluid, you would go ahead and do it here. So I'm going to go ahead and do it to the front differential and open it up. The rear, I am not going to open up the rear because the rear is the same. It's the same differential. So if you open one differential, you'll know how to open the other. So here we go. I am removing the screws that are opposite of each other. And we have 2 more. Now I doubt this needs oil. There's no signs that would lead me to believe it may need oil, but I will be checking. Now I know I was talking about the T-Max, and I know this is not a T-Max, but the point of it is that it's the same problems. When things stop working and you have a shifting mechanism, usually it's just, not always, but usually it's a maintenance issue. People have not maintained it. So you can actually get good differentials that just need to be maintained. Although, to be honest, sometimes you're better off just getting a new one, depending on the price. But here we go. So this differential here, because it's a locking differential, what I'm noticing is this is grease-filled. Well, it's not grease-filled, it's just greased up. So now everything that looks black, that's not dirty, that's just grease. In the camera it may look a little brown, but it's actually black grease, it's not brown. So in order to lift this and lift these out, you can just use a pick, a little hook, pull them out. You could use one of your drivers. Something like this may be too large, but you want to just kind of go in there, play with it. To be honest, my pick would have been better. You could even use your Allen wrench and then just dive in there and start pushing it out slowly. In my head, I keep saying I'm not going to tear this whole thing. And then I keep tearing it all out. But let me just show you. And like I said, if you do the front, the rear is the same. So remove it carefully. Now this here, I would just need to push this up. That will come out. So you would replace that. I'm losing valuable grease. Now these, as you can see, these key in. So you see that little cutout on that pin, on that shaft? Right, so it's the same thing on both sides. It doesn't matter which is the top, which is the bottom. But these will just mate together and they will key in. And the other thing too to keep in mind is these little plates. So you have these little plates here. These are what key in to the differential housing. So make sure that you have all four, and to make sure that they're oriented correctly. I mean, one side is much longer than the other, so you will know exactly which is which. Now, I'm actually glad I opened it because I can inspect everything here, and I can get rid of any lumps or anything that may be in there. And make sure this is set properly. All right, perfect. You really do not need to stuff the whole differential with grease, especially something like this. You have a locker for a reason. You want it to move freely when it's unlocked, and you want it to be locked when it's locked. That's the reason you would get a locker. So having limited slip action with a locker is not something you really need. I mean, there may be some cases where you may need it, possibly. I cannot think of any right now, so if you can think of any, just go ahead and put them in the comments. But here we go. So I just set this in there, and then I just started kind of pushing the gears, everything, and now it's sat. So now that it's sat in there, I'll go ahead and grab this top, and then I can try to line up the holes. By try, I mean line up the holes. There's no trying, you either do it or you don't. Well, I guess you have to try initially, and then you have to be successful. But here we go. So I'm going to start the reassembly now. And the reason why I'm starting the reassembly is because now I'm going to move on to a different part of the truck. But here we go. I'm going to use just a dab of this thread locking compound. I actually have a bunch of those just from different kits that I've built. There we go. Dirty tools, don't like dirty tools. Oh, sheesh, 2mm. You're supposed to catch me on these. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and drive one of the screws in, but I'm not going to drive it all of the way. Just going to get close. I'm going to just toss that other screw apparently. And actually, I'm not going to do this because if you've been watching carefully, I didn't put the locking mechanism in. Oh wait, that goes on the outside. What am I doing? This is what happens when you do things late at night. just looked down and I saw that, be confident in what you're doing. Here we go. Alright, so I'm just getting that one close and not too close. And here we go with the next one. And one of the nice things of kits like this when you have similar parts or similar ways is once you learn how to assemble something in the front, then you know how to assemble it in the rear. Some vehicles are extremely different. This one, luckily, the differentials are the same. So when I do the rear end assembly, I am not going to go inside of the differential. Alright, at this point, all the screws are in, so now I'm beginning to tighten them, and I'm going sort of in a cross pattern. If I can get this driver in, what's going on? There we go. Alright, so I was just tightening this way, and then doing that. Alright, and there we go. So now at this point, locking mechanism is going to go first, and then we're going to use one of the bearings. So I'm putting in the bearing with a shim. There's a shim in there. Does the shim go? Yeah, there it is. Shim goes in there. Perfect. And then in here, and there. It's this way. Alright, good. So once this is here, I'm going to grab this case. Now I'm going to wipe some of this off here. It's not in there. I don't want it to be in there once I fill this up. Or put the components inside. And I mean, I'm feeling the grease. The grease feels fine. So nothing to worry about there. And I will go ahead and drop that in. And then this will just be placed in here, and I will drop this in. And that is it. And so now, as you're putting the top case in here, just pull some of the slack out of the wire. Slowly, carefully. Don't want to damage the servo wire. And that is it. So, differential is now closed, and obviously I have to open it up again because I didn't put the pinion. I get so excited with the servo. And, alright, not a big deal. Just open it up enough so that I can drop this in. And like I said, the bearings feel fine. I'm not sure how much he used it. I don't think he used it that much. The bearings feel fine. But once the bearings are out, just put a little bit of oil in there. I mean, if you're just... You can put some WD-40 there too if you want it. Actually, WD-40, what I love about it is the way it keeps the plastics looking new. But anyway, there it is. And now it's time to mount the screws. And you forget which side the screws go. You see these rounded sides. I mean, that's the bottom. The screws go on the top. You have the flat parts for the head. And also remember the red goes on top. So let's go ahead and just place all the screws. We have all 3 screws. Now, I believe this was a 2.5. These differentials are very, very robust. It's one of those things that I wish my T-Max had this type of differential, but to be honest, it doesn't need them. If you have a T-Max for the rear differential, just do the XO1 setup with that little center metal plate, especially if it chews up those rear gears. Once you install the XO1, it's pretty much the same thing. It just has a little reinforcement plate in the middle of the actual differential gears. That will save your case because it's It's a plastic case instead of a metal one. But here we go. So the differential is in here. And now, again, this goes on the right side, this goes up, so you're going to grab this goes this way, and this will just seat right in here, slide in. And once you have this, just grab the rear component. Remember to send the wire in through that corresponding hole. And there it is. All right, so once the wire's out, everything else just falls into place. Slide this in. Once that is in there, you can start attaching the arms, which we will do on the next video. But for now, our differential is complete.